Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privajakacharya Ashtotarashata Shri Shrimad Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBTBI Sangstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Anant Kori Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Panchatattva Ki Shrimad Bhagavatam Amala Purana Ki Nitai Gaura Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Text 7 and 8. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll read 7 alone, and we'll chant 8 responsively. Evam ugrashava prishta rishibir naimishayanai bhagavatyarpada arpita dhyatmas tan aha shruyatam iti. On being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, the son of Ramaharshana, Sutta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." Text number 8. Sutta Uvacha Harer Trita Krodatano Svamayaya Harer Trita Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Gaur Uddharanam Rasatala Nishamya Gaur Uddharanam Rasatala Lilang Hiranyakshama Vagyaya Hatam Lilam Hiranyaksham Avagyaya Hatam Sanjata Harsho Munim Aha Bharata Sanjata Harsho Munim Aha Bharata Sutta Uvacha Harer Trita Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Gaur Uddharanam Rasatala Lilam Hiranyakshama Vagyaya Hatam Sanjata Harsho Muni Mahabharata. Prabhu? Maharaj? Sutta Uvacha Sanjata Harsho Muni Mahabharata. Sutta Uvacha Harirdrata Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Gor Uddharanam Rasatala Sanjata Harsho Muni Mahabharata. Sutta Uvacha Harirdrata Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Goruddharanam Sasatala Bilam Hiranyaksham Sanjata Harsho Ahavarata. Sutta Uvacha Harirdrata Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Goruddharanam Rasatala. Ladies,
Before you do the next line, make sure that the line you're doing is finished. Then go to the next line. Don't start it in advance so that actually one doesn't hear because you're still finishing the last line. So finish the line and then do it. Okay, good.
Vaishnavis.
Sutta Vacha
Sutta Uvacha
Harirdrata Krodatano
Harirdrata Krodatano
Svamayaya
Svamayaya
Nishamya Goruddharanam
Vishamya Goruddharanam
Rasatala
Rasataya
Lilam Hiranyakshama
Lilam Hiranyakshamabagyaya Hatam
Sanjata Harsho Munim Ahabharata.
Sutta Uvacha Harirdrata Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Gor Uddharanam Rasatala Lilam Hiranyakshamabagyaya Sutta Uvacha Harirdrata Krodatano Svamayaya Nishamya Goruddharanam Shamavagyaya Hatam Sanjata Harsho Sutta Uvacha. Sutta said, Harehe of the Lord, Dhrita, who had assumed, Kroda of a boar, Tanoho, body, Svamayaya, by his divine potency, Nishamya, having heard, Goho of the earth,
uddharanam, uplifting, rasatalat, from the bottom of the ocean, lilam, sport, hiranyaksham, the demon Hiranyaksha, avagyaya, neglectfully, hatam, killed, sanjata harshaha, being overjoyed, munim, to the sage Maitreya, aha, said, bharataha, vidura. Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Suta Goswami continued, Vidura, the descendant of Bharata, was delighted to hear the story of the Lord, who, having assumed by his own divine potency the form of a boar, had enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean and indifferently killing the demon Hiranyaksha. Vidura then spoke to the sage as follows. Purport. It is stated here that the Lord assumed the form of a boar by his own potency. His form is not actually the form of a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is forced to accept a particular type of body by the higher authority of material laws. But here it is clearly said that the Lord was not forced to accept the form of a boar by the external power. In Bhagavad Gita, the same fact is confirmed. When the Lord descends to this earth, He assumes a form by His own internal potency. The form of the Lord, therefore, can never consist of material energy. The Mayavad version that when Brahman assumes a form, the form is accepted from Maya, is not acceptable. Because although Maya is superior to the conditioned soul, she's not superior to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She's under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Maya is under his superintendence. Maya cannot overcome the Lord. Does anyone know that verse? Nice. He tunanena kaunteya jagati parivartate. The Mayavadi idea that the living entity is the supreme absolute truth but has become covered by Maya is invalid. Because Maya cannot be so great that it can cover the supreme. The covering capacity can be employed on the part and parcel of Brahman, not on the supreme Brahman. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Sankarshan Sarikari Tinamine Namo Prabhupada Nuga Prema Murtikvatmane Gaura Vikasharta Uttama Bhakti Varshine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschate Deshatarine. So again, the verses are, on being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, the son of Ramaharshana, Suta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." Suta Goswami continued, Vidura, the descendant of Bharata, was delighted to hear the story of the Lord, who, having assumed by his own divine potency the form of a boar, had enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean and indifferently killing the demon Hiranyaksha. Vidura then spoke to the sage as follows. For my obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vancha kalpatrubhascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in the verse, what's happening today in these verses is there's a transition. So we were hearing about the pastimes of Lord Varahadev from Maitreya Muni through Sutta Goswami and Shukadev Goswami. And that was completed, and now Vidura wants to hear more from Maitreya about the creation of Lord Brahma. So in this transitional point, Srila Prabhupada takes the opportunity to inform us, to remind us about the danger of Mayavad philosophy, which states that the Supreme Absolute Truth is formless, and ultimately everything that exists is illusion only, and that liberated from that illusion, all living entities, all manifestations again become homogeneously one with that Supreme Absolute. This is called Brahma Gyan. So, thank you. So, first of all, in the verse, there's a couple of, I'm sure there's many interesting things, but what jumped out for me was this line, Lilam Hiranyaksham Abhagyaya Hatam. So it's interesting, it's translated that the Lord lifted the earth from the bottom of the ocean and he indifferently killed the demon Hiranyaksha. So for the Lord there's no anxiety in any of his activities. One of the names of Krishna, of God, is Vaikuntha, without anxiety, Vaikuntanath. And when we think of these demons, even the demigods, when they see these great demons creating havoc in the universe, they become fearful and they begin praying, they begin seeking protection. It's a common psychology, even we feel it. When there's danger, we immediately start thinking of God. Or maybe a common man on the street, if he's attacked, he immediately looks for the police or the government to help him. So, Avagyaya Hatam, he killed him indifferently. It didn't mean much to Krishna. So, to kill this demon, it was just a sport for him. It was just an enjoyment, another type of enjoyment. So, Srila Prabhupada also, the empowered representative of Krishna, was fearless. Yeah, and we saw that in many of his dealings. I didn't see it, but I hear about it. And I was reminded of a letter which I looked up. This was a letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to a disciple named Krishna Das, who was going through some struggles. He was trying to open up a center in Sweden. He did not succeed externally. And Srila Prabhupada was advising him. He says in the letter, "You mentioned that your pathway has become filled with stumbling blocks. But there are no stumbling blocks. I can kick out all those stumbling blocks immediately, provided that you accept my guidance. With one stroke of my kick, I can kick out all stumbling blocks. You are always welcome. All of your doubts will be cleared up either personally, face to face, or by correspondence with me. I'm going to Los Angeles, Dwarka Ki Jai. You can come to live with me and all your doubts will be erased. In the beginning, there were no doubts, but by bad association, you now have got doubts." So let us be like beginners, yeah? Sometimes the Buddhists, they talk about, I heard this, I don't know, but somebody told me, they talk about returning to beginner's mind. Free from doubts, that pure, innocent shelter of the spiritual master that we come. Just like now, there's a nice devotee in the ashram visiting, where is he? Matthew? Not here today, okay. He's also, I can see, and I like associating with him very much because I can see his very innocent, simple shelter, the desire to be sheltered by Krishna, by Srila Prabhupada. So, Srila Prabhupada, like Krishna, can kick out our doubts, because today, where are the demons, right? We don't have a Hiranyaksha to face. We have the demons of doubts, right? Arjuna faces this in Bhagavad Gita. These are the demons that we have in the world, we have inside of ourselves. And the spiritual master, the representative of Krishna, he can kick out the stumbling blocks, he can kick out the doubts and clear our way. For him, it's nothing. It just depends on us, how much are we willing to accept the guidance. So that's just one thing that kind of struck me from the verse. I'd like to read a little bit about Krishna's appearance in this world. This is from the 10th canto, chapter 20. If I remember, I forget which demon Krishna is killing in this chapter, but there's a description of, this is actually the chapter of the rainy season and autumn in Vrindavan. So there's a description given, Danu arviyati mahindram nirgunam cha gunim yabhat vyakte guna vyatakare gunavan purusho yata. This is beautiful, listen to this, try to imagine. When the curved bow of Indra, the rainbow, appeared in the sky, which had the quality of thundering sound, it was unlike ordinary bows because it did not rest upon a string. Similarly, when the Supreme Lord appears in this world, which is the interaction of the material qualities, he is unlike ordinary persons because he remains free from all material qualities and independent of all material conditions. And Prabhupada comments on this in Krishna book. He says, sometimes in addition to the roaring thunder of the clouds, there's an appearance of a rainbow which stands as a bow without a string. Actually, a bow is in the curved position because it is tied at two ends by the bowstring. But in the rainbow, there's no such string, and yet it rests in the sky so beautifully. Similarly, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends to this material world, he appears just like an ordinary human being, but he is not resting on any material condition. Yeah, something to help us, because we can't understand perfectly Krishna's transcendental position, as much as Krishna chooses to reveal. But through these brilliant analogies Prabhupada lays out throughout his purports, it helps us glimpse it. Like there's a Bengali phrase that the mother tries to help her child understand where the moon is by pointing to the, Chandra Shakanyaya? She points to the branch of the tree and says, follow that branch with your eyes, you see, and there's the moon. You see the moon now? So Prabhupada is helping us to understand Krishna from our level. And in the purport today he spoke about the covering potency of Maya. But that potency is never powerful enough to cover Krishna. So easy example to understand that is that the sun is the cause of the clouds. The sun taxes the earth of its water from different bodies of water, from the earth itself. The sun is drawing out water and collecting it, and then at appropriate times forms the clouds and sends it to rain over the different parts of the world. So if we look up, we might see, from our perspective, the sun is covered by clouds. We might speak like that. But actually, in truth, from the sun's perspective, there's no covering whatsoever. Yeah. So we might think when we see Krishna or hear about Krishna, we might think he's a person like us. But actually, he's never touched by the material energy. He's just like the sun. And actually, by his potency, he illuminates all manifestations of this world. All forces, all laws, all powers, all energies, they're all coming from Krishna. So, we can remember this example of the sun. So why is, Prabhupada is here speaking about the Mayavadi version. Why is he speaking about that? So we're not listening to Mayavad philosophy in our day-to-day life. We're not hearing it. Nobody's really preaching it, But the fact is that Mayavad philosophy has pervaded the whole world, and we're living under its influence whether we're aware or not. So we live in like an impersonal atmosphere, especially in the modern world. So why is it dangerous? Why is this impersonal philosophy dangerous? Impersonalism. That, the Brahman takes a form that is touched by the material nature, that is created by the material mode of goodness, and comes to speak its teachings and then goes back to its pure state as Brahman. Why is that dangerous? Because actually, if you see, it leads to exploitation. Because then it means that everything is illusion, and ultimately nothing in this world has any meaning or connection with reality. Therefore, it doesn't matter how we treat things or people around us. Gradually, this type of attitude develops if one hears or indulges in Mayavad teachings. So, Vaishnava culture is very different. In Vaishnava culture and philosophy, everything is personal. Everything is personal in nature. In some villages in India, I've heard that they treat the local plants even like their family members or community members. So they'll have a tree in the courtyard, and sometimes for festivals they'll dress it up with a sari and tilak, and dance and sing and celebrate together. And then when it comes time to build a new building, they won't cut the tree. They'll build around it. Even if they have a business, they'll design it so that the courtyard has to be right there where the tree is. Vaishnava culture sees personality everywhere throughout nature, not only in humans and animals, but even in plants, and even in the so-called inanimate world, amazingly enough, even the rocks. In fact, we worship the great transcendental rock, Govardhan Hill, and we worship Shalagram Shila. We put faces on it, right? So this worship is performed not in ignorance, but in perfect knowledge of the connection with the Supreme Lord. Yeah. The earth, the mountains. When the British missionaries came to India, they saw this. Well, there are people worshiping cows, trees, and rocks. Rocks are meant for our feet. And they considered this to be some heathenism. And they exploited this by putting down the Vedic culture, the Indian culture. So, in this way, impersonalism is spread when we see the world not as, coming from a person or being filled with personhood, but seeing it as resources. Even the Yamuna and Ganga are treated now as resources. People think we can get this, that, and the other from her. Let's see how we can use her for our purposes. So when persons become resources, it directly has an impact on the environment around us. And all of these things that we see in the world now are a result of impersonalism. There's environmental problems, meat eating, automation, systems, equality. So when resources become persons, then it creates this whole atmosphere of exploitation. In today's world, impersonalism does not require effort. You can just go with the flow and you'll be influenced. You'll become impersonalistic. It doesn't require any effort, but personalism requires great effort. Requires a lot of effort to become personal. I know I'm struggling so much myself to get rid of these so many deep-seated impersonal tendencies. My journey to spiritual life was inspired by one saint, Francis. Prabhupada once visited a monastery dedicated to Saint Francis in Australia, and he was told, he didn't know about Francesco d'Assisi, but they told him, this particular saint that their acharya, he named all the entities in nature, brother sun, sister moon, sister wind, brother tree, everything. He was speaking to nature as if it was filled with his family members. What do you think about this approach, Srila Prabhupada? And you can see the video, it's recorded. Prabhupada's eyes go open. And he's filled with appreciation, and he says, this is the best form of God consciousness. And they were surprised that this guru is appreciating our acharya even more than we can appreciate. Prabhupada was filled with appreciation for Saint Francis. In the Bhagavatam, there's a narration of the Prachetas. They had undergone severe penance, austerity, under the water of the ocean for thousands of years on the order of their father so that they could, rule the world. And at a certain point, they came out, they had succeeded doing their penance. And they were very powerful. They had all kinds of yogic power. And they saw that the world had been overgrown by trees. The whole planet was just covered in trees. And they were filled with anger, with fury. And just like Shiva, who blows fire throughout the universe at the time of annihilation, they, by their yogic power, started, by their eyes, they shot flames at the trees, and they were intent on removing just wiping out the tree species on this planet. Imagine how devastating that would be. So I think it was Brahma, he came to the rescue. And he said, he spoke to the tree community, and he said, can you please give your daughter? He calmed down the prachetas, and then he said, please now, trees, please give your daughter as a gift, kanyadan, give her as a gift to become the wife of the prachetas. Actually, it wasn't their daughter, she was the daughter of Kandu, a great sage, and Pramlocha, an apsara. She had been left in the forest, and they had raised her and protected her. So, when you give the gift of a daughter, now you have the families are tied, and you're not going to do some harm to your father-in-law, right? So, you see, in this way, the trees were protected, and the earth was again protected and saved. So this is, when we see personality and we create personal exchanges, it protects the sanctity of our relationships, of our environment, And Srila Prabhupada, he gave us a great gift, so many gifts. But one of the most wonderful gifts is this solid foundation of personalism. Not as sentimental, but solid foundation of personal philosophy on the basis of Vedanta. What higher authority is there in terms of Shastra, right? We worship the Bhagavatam because the Bhagavatam is the perfect explanation of Vedanta. I'll just read to you, we have a couple minutes, so I'd like to just kind of wrap it up by reading one purport from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada explains this, he elaborates on this. Let's see if I can find it. This is Adi Lila, chapter 7. The context is Mahaprabhu has now been associating with the Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares, headed by Prakashananda. The verse is 102. Etashuna hasi Prabhu balila vachana dukkana manaha yadi kari nivedana. After hearing the Mayavadi sannyasis speak in that way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled slightly and said, my dear sirs, if you don't mind, I can say something to you regarding Vedanta philosophy. Purport. I'll skip a little here, we don't have much time. Vaishnavas do not neglect Vedanta, but they do not care to understand Vedanta on the basis of the Sharirika Bhashya commentary. That's Shankaracharya's commentary. Therefore, to clarify the situation, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with the permission of the Mayavadi sannyasis, wanted to speak regarding Vedanta philosophy. The Vaishnavas are by far the greatest philosophers in the world, and the greatest among them was Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu, whose philosophy was again presented less than 400 years later by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. Therefore, one must know very well that Vaishnava philosophers are not sentimentalists or cheap devotees like the Sahajiyas. All the Vaishnava acharyas were vastly learned scholars who understood Vedanta philosophy fully. For unless one knows Vedanta philosophy, he cannot be an acharya. To be accepted as an acharya among Indian transcendentalists who follow the Vedic principles, one must become a vastly learned scholar in Vedanta philosophy, either by studying it or hearing it. Bhakti develops in pursuance of Vedanta philosophy. This is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Does anyone know this? I'm sure. The bhakti is developing in pursuance of Vedanta philosophy. The evidence is from the Bhagavatam itself. Tat shradadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shuta grihitaya. The words bhaktya shuta grihitaya in this verse are very important, for they indicate that bhakti must be based upon the philosophy of the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra. Srila Rupa Goswami said, devotional service performed without reference to the Vedas, Puranas, Pancharatras, etc. must be considered sentimentalism, and it causes nothing but disturbance to society. There are different grades of Vaishnavas, Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama Adhikaris. But to be a Madhyama Adhikari preacher, one must be a learned scholar in the Vedanta Sutra and other Vedic literatures, because when Bhakti Yoga develops on the basis of Vedanta philosophy, it is factual and steady. So I'll just repeat the verses we read today. On being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, the son of Romaharshan, Suta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." Suta Goswami continued, Vidura, the descendant of Bharata, was delighted to hear the story of the Lord, who, having assumed by his own divine potency the form of a boar, had enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean and indifferently killing the demon Hiranyaksha. Vidura then spoke to the sage as follows. Okay, we'll stop there. Would anyone like to make any corrections, comments, suggestions? Mother? Yes, she was first.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
When you spoke about trees being a part of the community, I remember the pastime from my Guru Maharaj's book, I'll Build You the Temple, the Juhu story, that while they were building that big complex at the Juhu land, the road had to go where the trees were. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, brainstorm, think of how you can make it work, just do not put them down. And the devotees did come up with the kind of concept like the Venus kind of boulevard, so it has that separation between two directions of the traffic, which from my understanding wasn't as common back then, so they had to really think of it. And another comment I had is regarding like impersonalist and love, right? So we come, Srila Prabhupada said many times there's no love in material world. And as a neophyte, I don't really taste the spiritual love yet that much. And so therefore there's envy, and love and envy contradict each other. And what comes, the first step to come to love is gratitude. I get this realization a few days ago when I was at the Venus beach, and thinking that the ocean is so nourishing. And I start thinking that, well, the Mother's Ganges is there, Mother Jamuna is there, Mother Saraswati is there, and then the Mother Earth, Mother Bhumi, and the wind, the sun. So when I start thinking about them as personal by the names, I felt I'm nourished every day by mothers and fathers with this unlimited love. And even though I don't yet see Krishna in everything, but I know that he is protecting me and nourishing me through these agents who are personalities. And I felt that open more gratitude in my heart from thinking that way, like personal way. Thank you.
Thank you. I adopted the practice of, because when we're in India, we offer obeisances before we go into any kunda, any water reservoir or Ganga. So I adopted that also in the West, you know, even like before the Pacific Ocean or anything, before entering to offer obeisances. It's good practice. I feel the reciprocation from Bhumi Devi. So we'll stop unless there's anything urgent. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.